Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Leeser, your host for all things giallo here on The King in Giallo. We are continuing our coverage for the third giallo film from Lucio Fulci, Don't Torture a Duckling, released on September 29th, 1972. In this video, I will give you a condensed version of the full-length overview video covering only the cast and crew and the plot of the movie. Then I'll transition into the GialliTally. The GialliTally will contain heavy spoilers. Here is Don't Torture a Duckling overview. Don't Torture a Duckling is an Italian production. The film is directed by Lucio Fulci, who also co-wrote it along with Gianfranco Clerici and Roberto Gianviti. Music is composed by Ritz Ortolani. The cast is comprised of Florinda Bolkan as Maciara, Tomas Milian as Andrea, Barbara Bouchet as Patrizia, Marc Porel as Don Alberto, Irene Papas as Aurelia, George Wilson as Francesco, Virgilio Gazzolo as the Commissioner, Ugo D'Alessio as Modesti, Antonello Campodifiori as the Lieutenant, and Vito Passeri as Giuseppe Barra. The plot follows a remote, insular Italian village thrown into turmoil by a string of brutal child murders. Suspicion quickly falls on Maciara, a reclusive woman feared for her association with folk magic, but while the locals are convinced of her guilt, the authorities remain skeptical. As tensions rise, Andrea, a determined reporter from the city, arrives to dig deeper into the case. His investigation uncovers a tangled web of secrets, prejudice, and hidden motives, revealing that nearly everyone in the village has something to hide. With fear and superstition fueling the community's hysteria, Andrea must separate fact from rumor before the true killer strikes again. But I digress. On to the GialliTally. Spoilers ahead for those of you who haven't yet seen the film. You've been warned. My prediction for the movie's GialliTally score. I totally forgot to give a prediction in my unscripted movie review, but I will do it right now. Let's go with 650 to 700 points. Well, let's begin the GialliTally portion of the video. Beginning, as always, with the previewing cliches. The repeat offenders are 1 point for actor, 3 for writer, 3 for composer, and 5 for director. Florinda Bolkan was in A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, 1 point. Tomas Milian was in The Designated Victim, 1 point. Barbara Bouchet was in The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, The French Sex Murders, Smile Before Death, Amuck, Black Belly of the Tarantula, and The Man with Icy Eyes, 6 points. Irene Papas was in Oasis of Fear, 1 point. Virgilio Gazzolo was in Deadly Inheritance, 1 point. Linda Cini was in 7 Blood-Stained Orchids, 1 point. Franco Balducci was in Cross Current, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, and Perversion Story, 3 points. Lucio Fulci wrote A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, Perversion Story, and Double Face, 9 points. Roberto Gianviti wrote 7 Blood-Stained Orchids, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, and Perversion Story, 9 points. Gianfranco Clerici wrote The Blood-Stained Butterfly, 3 points. Ritz Ortolani composed 7 Blood-Stained Orchids, The Dead Are Alive, So Sweet, So Perverse, and Perversion Story, 12 points. And Lucio Fulci directed A Lizard in a Woman's Skin and Perversion Story, 10 points. Cliché points for the title. Don't Torture a Duckling. Contains an animal, duckling, 5 points. Is a command, 5 points. First look, 25 points for the Italian director, 15 points for the movie releasing during the golden age of giallo cinema, and 15 points for this being a quintessential giallo film. And would you look at that? It is plot o'clock. We open on a country setting. I'm not sure where this highway is exactly, as there are numerous filming locations across the southern part of Italy, but let's just begin with Italian locales, 3 points. We pan over to find somebody digging. It's this woman, played by Florinda Bolkan, and she's digging up skeletal remains of an infant. Z is for zoom, extra points for a zoom on eyes, 10 points. E is for eyeballs, 5 points. She collects the remains. Cut over to this kid. C is for children, 5 points. He spies something, a lizard, and pelts it with his slingshot. Animals featured, lizard, 2 points. Extra points for an animal being mutilated, 3 more points. Church bells toll throughout the town. Boys are praying in church beneath a figure of death, or Santa Muerte. Art featured, religious iconography, 5 points. The boys are in the middle of reconciliation, clearly doing penance after receiving absolution. Is it obvious that I went to Catholic school? For the lay people, the boys have just confessed their sins and are now praying for forgiveness, which is customary. Sometimes the priest will give you an act to perform to complete your penance. Sometimes you just have to pray and reflect, promising to avoid being tempted by further sinning in the future. These boys decide to sneak off. Bruno here genuflects, then leaves. We follow these women now. They pass by the first boy, who recognizes their car and runs to alert the others. Y is for yelling, 5 points. Michele and Bruno do what any normal kids their age would do in the 70s and in Italy: smoke cigarettes. 'Cause, life is just so stressful. They mention Tonino is taking the day off. Tonino shows up to tell them that the people are coming, and they run off. The ladies park and meet some fellas looking to have a good time. They are harassed by this peeping Tom, Giuseppe Barra. First person POV, 5 points. The women kick him out for not paying, but the guys allow him to watch. V is for voyeur, 5 points. The boys berate Barra, calling him pervert, and he runs them off, threatening them. We cut then to a dark and dingy room where a poppet is pulled from a dark liquid, then pierced with a pin. Then another, and a third. Each time, it flashes to one of the 3 boys. Michele comes home and is instructed by his mother to take orange juice upstairs to the lady of the house. Spiral staircase, 5 points. Upstairs, he discovers the most beautiful thing in existence. This wave motion machine. Like, seriously, this thing is so badass. Behind it, though, is a naked woman. N is for nudity, 5 points. J is for J and B, 5 points. This is Patrizia, played by Barbara Bouchet. He drops off the OJ, but she tells him to bring it over. She's thirsty. He's thirsty as well, so he acquiesces. She teases him and asks if he's ever seen a naked woman before. He says yes. She asks how many girls he's slept with, and he says lots. L is for lies, 5 points. She calls bullshit, then proceeds to flirt harder, asking if he would desire her, which he admits yes. Suddenly, Michele's mother calls out to him, and he must leave. Not before tripping and losing his aura. Am I cool? Is that what the kids say? We follow Bruno, who appears to be being chased by someone throughout the darkened woods. Foot chase, 5 points. He's being drowned out by a barking dog. Bruno trips, but when he stands, he is struck upon the head and falls limp. Extra points for C is for children, for a child being killed, 5 more points. Cut to police conducting a search party. We overhear through a radio broadcast that this is day 4 of Bruno being missing. The report is being read aloud by Andrea here, played by Tomas Milian. R is for reporter, extra points for them being a sleuth, 10 points. T is for telephone, 5 points. Andrea relays that there's been a recent update in the case. An anonymous man has called the father with ransom demands. Andrea arrives to get the story, but is turned away by police. Bruno's parents lament to police that they are poor and cannot meet the demands of the ransom. They confirm that they have no enemies in town either. The father explains that 6 million lira must be brought to the abandoned factory and placed in the 3rd boiler by sunset. Andrea walks in, inquiring how it must be in cash. Q is for questions, 5 points. He points out to the commissioner that the blackmailer must be a bit crazy in order to stipulate something so obvious as bringing cash. Andrea sees his way out, and Mr. Locascia adds that the blackmailer threatened to kill Bruno if the demands were not met. Later, we follow Barra, the peeper, as he enters said abandoned factory and checks the 3rd boiler. Police spring the trap and swarm in upon him. In an interrogation, Barra admits that he uses the boiler to hide his things. He denies killing Bruno. The phone rings, and the lieutenant orders Barra to speak into the receiver. He freaks out, but Mr. Lokasha on the other end confirms the voice is that of the blackmailer. Cut to the police with Barra out in the wilderness. Police dig up the remains of Bruno. Barra is hauled off, but denies killing Bruno, asserting that the boy was already dead when he'd found him. Andrea points this out to Captain Modesti, but he says, "So what? The guy is crazy." P is for priest, 5 points. Up walks Don Alberto with the other boys. The priest kneels at the body and prays. This is overseen by the town witch, Maciara. A mob forms as Barra is transported from the local jail to a city prison. The police struggle to keep the peace. The commissioner says the town wants a culprit and admits that Barra's story is full of contradictions, which only proves his low IQ, and Captain Modesti concurs that Barra has never been known to hurt a fly. They conclude that he must have found the body, then hid it in order to extort money. But, being the genius that he is, he obviously did not think his plan through. The following morning, a crone washing laundry discovers the body of Tonino, seemingly drowned in the fountain. The police confirmed that both bodies were unmolested, ruling out sexual perversion as a motive. Furthermore, the first victim was knocked out, then strangled to death, as was the second victim. Keep this in mind for the Deadpool later on. The lieutenant declares that the killer must be a schizophrenic. They agree, whatever the reason, the killer is a lunatic. They decide to find a connection between the two victims. Cut over to Maciara, who buries 2 of the poppets and salts the earth above them. Andrea now speaks with Don Alberto, who knew the victims better than anyone. He admits that the kids are all better off here at the church than on the streets, but he must chalk it up to their passion for football, or soccer as it's known to us in the States. He says his connection with them is so strong because he too plays the sport with them. Don Alberto talks about the power of television, cinema, and magazines being an unconscious corrupting force for people, and how it makes his job fairly difficult here, but he's managed to ban certain magazines from being delivered in town. Andrea gets the priest to smoke with him and asks, what about the outsider woman in town, Patrizia, who herself must provide enough titillation for the locals? She walks over and flirts with the priest, asking if he can get married yet, then chastises him for smoking. She leaves, and Don Alberto posits that weird things have happened since she's arrived in town. As she drives off, the captain tells the lieutenant that she's the daughter of a former local who had made his fortune in Milan and had built the modern villa in town in order to spite all of the locals. His daughter must have gotten into some trouble with a group of drug addicts or something, and her father thought a change of scenery would be good for her. Exposition dumping, 2 points. That night, as a storm rages, Michela is home alone drawing nudies when the phone rings. It's Patrizia calling and asking to meet Michela somewhere. She drives off, and Michela sneaks out. As Michela trudges through the dense foliage, someone stalks behind him, hacking up the shrubbery. Michela hides. The man is this guy, played by George Wilson. Michela slips past. He waits beneath a crucifix and sees someone approaching. His smile fades quickly as he is ambushed and attacked. He is throttled and knocked unconscious. Killer's identity is hidden due to the framing and editing, 2 points. The parents tell the police that they took so long to notice Michela's disappearance because the lady of the house, aka Patrizia, always requests for them to be present when she's out of the house because she's afraid of coming home and finding an intruder inside. She's only gone out a few times recently. Andrea and police search for the body. Extra points for Z is for a zoom on a dead body. 5 more points. Patrizia speaks with the lieutenant in the split diopter shot. She mentions her going out, but only driving around for 3 hours. A is for alibi, 5 points. He presses her on this, and she relents, saying she has habits she's tried to escape, but gets urges occasionally. He reminds her that she stopped to get petrol. She claims to not remember, asserting that she did not stop. Cut over to Maciara, who buries a 3rd poppet. At a funeral now, Maciara walks in whilst being filmed entering the church. Modesti points out to the commissioner a little girl and her mother across the way. The mother is played by Irene Pappas. The little girl is named Melvina and is said to be unintelligent. Suddenly, the mother of Michela begins screaming aloud that the killer is in the room with them all. Extra points for Y is for yelling, for a hysterical woman yelling. 5 more points. Funeral scene. Extra points for new information being learned. 5 points. The camera pans across the chaos, past Don Alberto, and over to Patrizia, then cuts to Maciara. She flees the church. End Part 1. Thanks, movie, for the piss break. Part 2 opens with police reviewing the footage of Maciara exiting the church hastily. The captain denies that the woman is actually a practicing witch, stating firstly that she is only called a witch because she is Uncle Francesco's girlfriend, and he is a renowned magician in these parts, and secondly that witchcraft and religion go hand in hand in rural towns such as this. The captain and lieutenant pay Uncle Francesco a visit to his secluded mountain house. They ask if Maciara is in, but he says apparently not. He hasn't seen her in 2 weeks. Francesco sets down a new puppet he's made, and he is revealed to be the man we saw earlier thrashing through the shrubbery during the storm. Francesco speaks very cryptically the whole time, but essentially says that Maciara is no threat to anyone. On their way out, the two hear an approaching car and sneak over the ridge to see Patrizia driving up. They watch her as she meets Francesco, and the two go inside. In the town center, more regional police have arrived. Andrea is informed that he's being asked to get intel on Aurelia, the woman with the mute little girl, and that she is the mother of Don Alberto. The police receive a call from someone saying they know where to find the witch. Someone is taunting the police by phone. 5 points. I'll include it. The caller is Aurelia. Police arrive at the location where the tip said to go. They find an extensive cave, but no Maciara. But the dogs have got the scent of something. They've found the infant's skeletal remains from the opening of the film. The captain says it was the son of Maciara and Uncle Francesco 15 years ago. The captain says there were rumors going around about her being pregnant, but it being a stillborn because of its connection to evil. But this was all just hearsay. This is the first proof that Maciara did in fact have a baby. Next, they come across the 3 graves of the puppets. Outside, the dogs have caught Maciara's scent and give chase. It's nice of the pursuing officers to not just sick the dogs on her. She is eventually surrounded and arrested. She confesses. A mob forms outside. She says she brought death to all 3. In a flashback, we see the boys playing at her son's grave. She threatens them to leave, having warned them numerous times already. She says they kept coming back and disturbing the site. When asked why she didn't bury him in consecrated ground, she says because he was the son of the devil, supernatural elements, or superstitious yokels. 2 points. She confesses again to killing them, but swears that Uncle Francesco is innocent and she told nobody. She had simply asked him for guidance, but when the commissioner implies that she wanted to know how to strangle someone, Maciara is confused. They ask her to explain what she means, but she refuses. She breaks into hysterics, collapses, convulses, and foams at the mouth. She's administered a sedative. Sedative given. 5 points. Calmer now, she explains. She had made 3 wax figures for each of the boys, painted them black for a death spell, and pierced them 13 times while saying the curse. She says that 13 demons are dispatched, and they will carry out the killings by possessing human familiars. Cut over to Patrizia smoking. The lieutenant swears that on the night of Michela's murder, he had seen the witch outside the old fort, a distance of over 3 hours by foot from the scene of the crime. He'd spoken to her. They all agree. Maciara is innocent of the physical murders, and they will release her tomorrow morning, although the captain acknowledges the danger of not only their lack of a true culprit, but that the police keep creating more culprits for the mobs. As Maciara leaves the next morning, she is spurned by several locals who spit in contempt. Once out of town, she nears the cemetery, but realizes that she is not alone. A group of some of the men in town, including 2 of the fathers, have surrounded her. A car radio is turned on and blares music. The men encroach. She tries to shut the gate on them, but they smash it on her fingers, tearing the skin. They encircle her. She's struck with a club, then whipped with a chain, then backhanded, and hit again with the chain, and a final time with the chain, which causes her to collapse. The men abandon Maciara to die. She perseveres to crawl away and up to the highway, but the cars just drive on by. She watches a happy family drive by, then succumbs to her wounds and dies. Mistaken identity of the killer, 5 points. Later, the mob and police surround her body. The commissioner wants those responsible found, but the captain quips to himself, "Sure, I'll just arrest the entire village." Patrizia asks the little girl, Malvina, what happened to her doll? Who ripped its head off? Andrea informs her that the girl doesn't talk. Character is mute, 2 points. Patrizia offers to buy the girl a new doll, then she and Andrea formally introduce themselves to each other. Patrizia drags Malvina to the store. These two boys walk and contemplate going to spy on the sex workers again. They're nearly ran off of the road. Reckless driving, 5 points. We watch Patrizia leave home, then watch as one of the boys chickens out and goes back to the soccer pitch, while this boy, Mario, continues to go spy on the grown-ups canoodling. Don Alberto finds out that the boys have been going to the haunted house to spy on women. The boy says he'd warned Mario that the killer is still out there despite the witch being killed. Don Alberto castigates the boy, calling him ignorant, that black magic cannot kill anyone. He goes off to find Mario. Patrizia has a flat tire. Car trouble, 2 points. Mario comes upon the car, which seems abandoned. He hops in and begins honking the horn. Patrizia returns and asks if he can change a tire. He says he can with tools. She offers him 1,000 lira or a kiss. Cut to Mario dead in the water with an open gash in the back of his head. Despite the contusions, they suspect that, like the others, Mario was actually strangled to death. They say the priest found his dead body. The police say everybody is scared once again, and now is not the time to question the priest. Andrea finds Patrizia's golden lighter in the grass. He then waits inside for Patrizia to return while reading a book of hers about black magic. She walks up, and after some small talk, Andrea returns the lighter, saying no one else in the village could afford it. It must be hers. Then says he almost took it to the police because of the other body found in the vicinity. Patrizia claims to have not known until now that there was another victim. She refuses to tell him where she was. Cut to a flashback of her being interrogated. The commissioner says her story doesn't add up, that technically she would have had to stop for more fuel. Extra points for A is for alibi, for the alibi being investigated. 5 more points. She relents. She says she had stopped to make a call and noticed that the boy had taken her number. She called a campsite to buy weed off some hippies she knew there. The lieutenant asks about her relationship to Francesco, but she denies knowing him until he calls her out for witnessing her visiting him. She admits that she has a fascination with black magic. Furthermore, he's the nicest person in town, who also makes her laugh. They question her about the campsite she'd called, but catch her in a lie when she accidentally admits to calling the wrong place. Extra points for L is for lies for lying about an alibi. 5 more points.
Ma insomma, che cosa volete da me?
Extra points for Q is for questions being yelled. 5 points. Back with Andrea, she says if she'd told them that the boy had fixed her tire, then she'd be locked up. She threw the lighter away. Evidence being hidden. 5 points. In the paper, Patrizia notices something bizarre at the memorial site at the fountain of the recent murder, a Donald Duck head. Odd clue, 5 points. She says that's the head of the new doll that she had just bought for the little girl. The two check an old crime scene looking for more clues, and Andrea finds it. The head of Malvina's old doll. He points out how the priest's house and its window overlooks this location. He concludes that Malvina had witnessed the murderer strangling Tonino, and she had replicated the act on her own doll, only she squeezed so hard that she had popped the head off. I'll add this, although it's kind of a stretch because we didn't see it, but it is important. W is for witness. 5 points. The two tell their theory to Don Alberto and Aurelia. They believe that the girl can positively identify the killer. Alberto says she's silent and intellectually disabled, but she's not dumb. If questioned the right way, she could help them. However, Aurelia mentions that she locks the door every night to prevent Malvina from wandering out. This clashes with their theory. Patrizia leaves a box of candy for the girl. At her place, the two continue to contemplate the theory. Extra points for J is for J and B being drunk. 5 more points. Andrea is adamant that the girl witnessed the murder firsthand. He says the door must have been unlocked that night. maybe she'd killed him, not the girl. He says he learned that Aurelia's husband had killed himself and the villagers blamed Aurelia. He says for certain she was a jealous woman towards her husband, and all of the victims attended the church where her son had a friendship with the boys. Perhaps she killed them for her jealousy of their affinity toward her son, for them stealing his affection. The phone rings. It's Don Alberto. Malvina and his mother are missing. Cut to Aurelia leading Malvina out into the foothills. Andrea and Patrizia are trying to find them. A local has seen them. They lament not talking to the police with their theory, not talking to the girl directly. This murder will be blood on their hands. Another local saw the two recently. Aurelia leads the girl up to a mountain cottage. Andrea confesses to Patrizia that he has 2 boys at home and a wife. Suddenly, in walks Don Alberto. There's a silent standoff between him and his mother as the girl wakes up. Andrea and Patrizia hike up. Alberto fights his mother for Malvina, tossing her into the stone wall. He carries the girl away. Aurelia stumbles out, wailing for him to let her go. She tells them that her son is insane and will kill the girl. They watch as he approaches the summit. We hear Don Alberto's inner thoughts, that he must kill the young and innocent in order to stop them from growing up and falling into the hands of sin. Killer's identity is hidden until the final moments. 5 points. Malvina kisses her older brother, who accepts it lovingly, but then holds her over the precipice. Andrea surprises him, congratulating him on finding the girl and offering to help take her back to the village. They then struggle over Malvina. Andrea breaks her free. The two fight. They wrestle. Alberto nearly crushes Andrea with a rock. Eventually, Alberto gets the girl back, but Patrizia attacks him. He fights her off. Typical 1970s Italian misogyny. Woman is slapped. 5 points. Andrea attacks. He fights him off and knocks him nearly over the edge. Andrea hangs on for dear life, but Alberto says,
"Long live the king."
He goes to finish the job, but is caught and tossed over. The Lord spirits away his soul and transforms his body into a lifeless mannequin dummy, which hits every single crag on its way down to the very bottom, while even attempting to slow his descent with his own face. We watch as Alberto's final thoughts seem to be his fond memories of his brothers, the boys at the church, and how he cared for them so dearly that, he just had to kill them in order to save them. Classic. His mangled body rolls to the bottom, and the movie ends there. Let's add up some final cliches. Extra points for P is for priest, for the priest being the killer. 5 more points. Extra points for T is for telephone, for the killer making a call. 5 more points. S is for secrets. Extra points for the killer having an impossible to predict motivation. 10 points. O is for obsession. Extra points for the killer being obsessed. 10 points. Oh shit, I totally forgot the one I always give away. F is for fashion. 5 points. Someone dies by falling to their death. 15 points. The killer is killed by someone. 10 points. The killer dies accidentally by falling. 10 points again. The killer is painfully or hilariously punished in their own death scene. 12 points. Hell, useless police. 2 points. And that's Don't Torture a Duckling. All right, now let's be real here. This is really one of the greatest giallo films. This is usually at the top of lists talking about Lucio Fulci giallo films and Lucio Fulci films in general. It's also customary to see this in top 10 giallo films lists, and yeah, it's very easy to see why. It's very well written, and the thing that I had pointed out in the review is it actually fights against a lot of the more cliche things to do in a giallo film. It does sex and violence very differently. You'll see this, there's only 2 instances of nudity, and the second instance is a repeat. It's a flashback of the first bit. And the funny thing is that only instance of sexuality is enough for the whole movie. It doesn't really have to pack in all these short little sex scenes to liven things up, to be like, ooh, we get some TNA, I'm awake now. And then in terms of the violence, I think because it's mostly children that are dying, the movie knows it doesn't have to go over the top with it. And then what's really funny is the kills for all the kids are very tame, and then the kill for Maciara is really brutal, and it's brutal in a way that actually makes us feel something. And then the last kill with Don Alberto is over the top. It's one of the most, at least, over the top kills in a giallo film. So I think it evens out. I'll say that. I think it does even out. The majority of the kills are tame or they're cutaways, but we get two pretty brutal ones. And hey, this paved the way for Fulci to do more violence in his movies, so that's cool. In terms of the thoughts I had that I wanted to save until now that we've gotten through the whole movie, okay, so when I first watched this movie, like a decade ago, I'm pretty sure I knew it was the priest. I don't recall if this was the first giallo movie I'd seen where the priest was the killer, or if I just kind of felt it was him. I actually don't remember if I knew it was him or not, but I'll say this, going through this movie now, it seems pretty obvious, but again, in that giallo way of being obvious, because for all intents and purposes, the movie wants you to focus on other people. First, there's Giuseppe Barra, who the movie is really trying to make you think it's him. And the first part where you find out that he's the blackmailer, it kind of almost feels like that's it, case closed. And then we find out, oh, well, no, that makes sense why he would find the body and think maybe I can get some money out of this. He didn't think it all the way through. That's just the character, but it's completely logical to think he would try to extort money out of the situation. And then we have Maciara, who has all the motive in the world. She's smiling at all of the crime scenes. She's performing it's not voodoo exactly, but it's black magic. I don't think it's really specific what it is, but she's performing these death spells on these totems. What were they called? Puppets. And she does it to 3 of them, and it shows the targets, and as the targets die, she's burying them. So again, it really seems like it's her. And then you find out, well, she's just doing the magic. She's not actually doing the killing. Whether the magic is actually working, that's another story, which is actually a very interesting thing, because for a Fulci movie, that would not be out of the realm of possibility for her to actually be killing people using magic. But I think it's because it's a giallo, it is more rooted in logic and reality, and so I think it's just supposed to be a coincidence. And then we have Patrizia, and I gotta say, I don't know what her deal is. They very loosely imply that she's a drug addict, but I do think that her character is the one that could use a little bit more tightening up in terms of maybe just a few extra lines of exposition, or a few extra lines of dialogue, or even an extra scene, because maybe I missed something, but I'm going through this line by line when I'm writing this, and I could not find a good reason why she called Michela in the middle of the night to meet him, and then she goes and just drives out of town. And then when she sees, what's the kid's name? Mario, she's like teasing with him, and then it cuts to him being dead, and by the time Don Alberto finds Mario, well, I mean, he kills him, but there can't have been that much time. I don't know. I will say this also. Patrizia, her character, she gets a big pass in terms of like scrutiny from giallo fans. Nobody really talks about the fact that it's an older woman seducing a boy, seducing like a middle school aged boy. If this was if the genders were swapped, obviously there would be way more vitriol against the character, but nobody really talks about it in terms of it being like something that is a little, dare I say, problematic. I don't like that word, but, it is a little voice for concern there. But anyways, in terms of it potentially being her, it's there. But I think I will tell you when I believe it is Don Alberto. Now, first off, if you're a big giallo fan and you generally know that 90% of the time, if you see a priest as a character who actually has speaking lines, he's not just there for a funeral scene, it's probably going to be the priest. And what is their motive? Well, at least half of the times, well, maybe. At least half of the times, their motive always seems to be preserving purity. And, I'm killing them because I'm trying to save their souls. Interestingly, though, you have a few other priest killers in this year of 1972. I won't name those films if you haven't seen them, but in one of them, you find out that the priest was killing people out of revenge for their brother dying. And then another one, you find out they're not even a real priest. They were actually hiding as a priest in order to avoid, I think, like extradition or something. But generally, when you find a priest, there's something disturbed about them, and maybe not half of the time, maybe at least a third of the time, like I said, it's because they're trying to preserve the innocence of their victims, which is, okay, you're clearly psychotic. There's something wrong there. But in terms of it being Don Alberto, if you are keen to the priest being a killer, the first time it becomes kind of obvious is the first time you see him. And I will say that's a genius move by the movie to not introduce the priest until after the first victim is found. Because at that point, you're thinking of the three other characters that I mentioned as the red herrings. And then when he shows up, he's showing up with the boys. He goes and he prays over the body. You're not necessarily thinking it's him, unless you're keen to suspect a priest in a giallo film, which you should be. The second time where it seems obvious that it is him, I believe this is the second time, is during the funeral scene when, who is it, Bruno's mother? Or is it Michaela's mother? Michaela's mother screams out that the killer is in here with us, and she makes a whole hysterical scene, and everybody goes to her, and the camera pans, and when it pans across Don Alberto, he turns away from everybody, and he looks up at, I believe, the crucifix, or he looks up at the altar or the tabernacle, and he's just kind of disassociating. And you'd think if he didn't have anything to hide, and being a priest, he'd probably want to restore some sort of balance or order in a comforting and understanding way. No, he checks out, which is a red flag. And then the other instance, the third time, which I believe is a dead giveaway, is when he's talking to Andrea and he starts talking about censorship. Now, I'll say this. The lines are almost verbatim between the Italian and the English, but being an English speaker, the lines land in a way that seems a little suspicious. I don't speak Italian, as I'm saying, so I can't really speak to how those lines are landing in the Italian. I'll say when you read them in subtitles, it doesn't seem that bad. But the way he says the lines in English, he kind of has a pride about it, about how, first he's talking about how the cinemas and magazines and television, like they're all corrupting forces, and there are certain magazines that won't even deliver here because of me. Like the way he says it, like I've talked to the vendors and they won't even deliver in town. I don't know. There's something about it that shows that not only is this important to him, but he will take action in order to get, in order to preserve the purity of the town. So that is the giveaway. And then the fourth one, which is probably the most telling, is when he's talking to the boys and the one boy says something about the witch was killed, but that I don't remember exactly what the boy says, but he grabs him and he almost throttles him. He just, the way he lifts him, and then the boys are looking at him and he has to do that quick, like, oh, you're so innocent. Oh, such a sweet child. And it's like, no. Oh, and then they also have Aurelia to kind of be a red herring, but they never really push that. I mean, yes, she's a little weird and suspicious, just suspicious looking, I guess. I don't know, but she calls the police to dibble up Maciara, tell them where they can find her. And then when we get that information near the very end where it was like, oh, she had a husband who died and the villagers think she may have been involved. Okay, maybe, but that's like in the last 12 minutes of the movie or so. So I don't think we were really thinking it was her. But anyways, yeah, that's all I got. So for the thoughts I wanted to share that were spoilers is that what a great list of red herrings. This might actually be, for a giallo film, the best collection of red herrings. They're oh my gosh, each of them is so convincing that it could be them. And I have to, like, hats off to Fulci and Gianviti and Clerici. Great job. And that's all I've got. Let's segue to the GialliTally cliches for this movie. Post-giallo viewing cliches. The reason for the killing. Psychopathy and obsession. 7 points. The reason for the investigation. We actually have police investigator, reporter, and a suspect proving their innocence. I can only pick one, so we'll select the one worth the most. Suspect proving their innocence, 10 points. And amateur detectives, 5 more points. Bonus points, the style bonus. The movie has a very reserved style that works so well with the story. Long zoom ins and long zoom outs, crash zooms, focus racking, a focus rack transition, slow motion, the diegetic music, the split diopter shots, and some first-person POVs. Out of a maximum of 25 points possible, I will give Don't Torture a Duckling 19 points for its style bonus. Soundtrack.
Mio Dio, mi pensa.
Ma tu non la vedi da tanto tempo. Le conosce?
Yes, 15 points. Bad effects. Yes, fake bodies galore, and the ugliest yet most beautiful fake body of all time. Max points, 15 points. Final look, extra points. The Deadpool, tallying how many kills and deaths are featured in the film. I break it down as thus: 10 points per kill or death scene for the main Deadpool, plus any stylistic kill multipliers, which we didn't add yet, plus the knife kill bonus. Remember, the victims may have been bludgeoned or staged in the water, but they were always strangled. We have Bruno Locascia, strangled, 12 points. Tonino, strangled, 12 points. Michele Spriano, strangled, 12 points. La Maciara, bludgeoned, 15 points. Mario, strangled, 12 points. And Don Alberto Avallone, fell, 10 points. Extended Deadpool for those other deaths mentioned but not seen, I'll give 3 points for each. We have La Maciara's unnamed infant and Aurelia's late husband, 6 points. Red herrings for the total number of legitimate suspects in the film. 5 points per legit suspect are awarded. We have Giuseppe Barra, La Maciara, Patrizia, Don Alberto, Uncle Francesco, and Aurelia Avallone. 30 points for red herrings. This is one of those cases where it theoretically could be a lot more people, but these are the more credible choices. Flashback sequences, 5 points each. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. 70 points for flashbacks. Nudity, I award 5 points for ass, 7 for breasts, and 10 for genitalia. We have everything And breasts, 29 points for nudity. Ladies and gentlemen, for Don't Torture a Duckling, I awarded the film an AZ score of 17 out of 26. With the bonus points for these, we have a modified score total of 150 points. And for the full GialliTally score, I award Don't Torture a Duckling a GialliTally score of 683 points. Compared to Short Night of Glass Dolls in first with 969 points, What Have You Done to Solange in second with 933 points, and So Sweet, So Dead in third with 893 points, Don't Torture a Duckling is in 17th place behind A Bay of Blood and ahead of The Bloodstained Butterfly. And for the non-giallo films, it is behind Maxine and Friday the 13th Part 5. I had totally forgotten to do the prediction, and so the number that was there was from the previous one, Knife of Ice, but the more I thought about it, I realized that it probably was going to be in the same ballpark of my previous prediction, and it looks like I was right, so I'm actually glad that I didn't change that to 700, 750, or anything else. So yeah, I mean, but truth be told, it doesn't have a whole lot of cliches compared to some other ones, but this kind of proves that it doesn't really have to in order to be, you know, a giallo masterpiece. So, like I say, these points do not mean a movie is better or worse. Please like this video, share it with your friends if they are horror fans or cinephiles, subscribe to The King in Giallo if you haven't yet, and if you have any questions, thoughts, curiosities, or concerns, leave those below in the comments section and I will get back to you. Give The King in Giallo a follow on Instagram and a like on Facebook, and subscribe to The King in Giallo Patreon to see early access to all of the YouTube videos, exclusive video series that can only be found there, and to generally support what I do. Next time on The King in Giallo will be the overview, review, and GialliTally for the only giallo film directed by Giampaolo Lomi and Edoardo Molargia, Tropic of Cancer, released on September 30th, 1972. Thank you very much for your continued support, and a special thank you to those who support me on Patreon. This is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time.
Come sono?
Sono due belle grassone. Erano due zinne che sembrano meloni e un culo così.
Allora, ma va!